Board of Selectmen meeting, Town of Wolfeboro to order. It's September 6, 2017. Rowan, do we
I have nothing.
move on to approval of the minute? August 10, 2017, special meeting minute. Board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple. On the first page, the first paragraph, Steve Durgan's name is spelled D-U-R-G-A-N. It also shows up on page 5. And then at the top of page 2, it wasn't Randy Pelletier, it was Rennie, R-E-N-E. Am I correct, Dave? And those are my three corrections.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll move to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have the August 16, 2017 regular minutes. Board?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a formatting issue. We ended up tabling the public hearing in the beginning of the meeting because nobody was here. And then we moved it. It is a temporary outdoor permit for Calvary Wolfeboro Church. And then we took it up on page 7, and I think we should have a heading public hearing at that point, as we did in the beginning, so people know what we're talking about there. And other than that, that's the only thing I have.
Okay, I'll make the motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. We have our first public hearing. It's a temporary outdoor event permit. It's the Hospital and Community Aid Association, Inc., to hold fall fundraisers on September 29th through 30th, October 6th through 7th, 13th through 14th, 20th through 21st, 27th through 28th, November 3rd through 4th, 10th through 11th, 7th through 18th, December 1st through 2nd, and 8th through 9th, 2017, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 65 Pine Hill Road. Is there somebody here to speak to that?
I'm Jane Ross from the Hospital and Community Aid Street Fair, here to have our fall fundraisers, which are all from donated items, and of course, everything goes to equipment for patient care for Huggins Hospital and also Huggins Back Bay Rehab. And we already, since the fair, have already received items from 4 homes, so we are already on our way.
That's great. I'll open the public hearing for this. Is there any members of the audience that have any questions, want to make any comments on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members?
I only have one thing, and I'm just going to try to read from the application. It says maintain vehicle access at all, I'm guessing it's entrance, and comply with all New Hampshire fire codes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, anything else from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the issuance of a temporary outdoor event permit to the Hospital and Community Aid Association, Inc., to hold fall fundraisers on September 29th, 30th, October 6th and 7th, 13th and 14th, 20th, 21st, 27th and 28th, November 3rd and 4th, 10th and 11th, 17th and 18th, December 1st and 2nd, 8th and 9th, 2017, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 65 Pine Hill Road.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, we have an acceptance of a grant over $10,000. It's an allocation of a highway block grant fund in the amount of $153,088.07. Mr. Owen?
Yes, the board previously discussed this and decided how it was going to use the money. We just need to have the public hearing and have the board vote to accept the money so that it can be legally expended during the current fiscal year.
I'll open the public hearing on this. Is there any members of the public that have any questions, wish to make comment? Mr. Ford?
Dave Ford, Public Works. I just wanted to, the schedule, we're getting authorization to spend it. We're getting, the schedule is filled with construction projects. And I'm just a little concerned. I had talked about trying to get to North Wolfeboro Road, and we still have other commitments we have to do first, which are the drainage projects for the 319 grant on Lake Wentworth and on Russ Pond. And if weather goes well and everything goes well, our hope would be that we would start work in mid to late October and try to get that base done, before the asphalt plants close. But I do want to indicate that there is a potential that there could be delays if we have any problems. And I don't think there would be a problem if it didn't go through this year. We could spend the money next year. I just want to make sure that was okay. And again, I'll be giving you updates on schedules in 2 weeks, I believe. So I'll have a better idea once we complete the project we're working on now with the Fossfield Pavilion. And I just want to make sure that was understood that.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Any other members of the public wish to speak to this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members? I'll make the motion to approve the acceptance of a grant of additional allocation of highway block grant funds in the amount of $153,088.07 for highway construction.
I'll second that.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Our final public hearing tonight is the proposed revisions of the Town Code, Chapter 126, which is sewers, rules and regulations for the operation and maintenance of the Wolfeboro Municipal Sewer System. Mr. Owen?
Yes, this has been proposed for some time. We're finally having the public hearing on it. It was advertised in the newspapers. We've made a series of revisions to the proposed ordinance. Just yesterday, Mrs. Murray gave us a list of edits, and we've made those edits also. And I know Dave Ford's here to address the issue, so I'll let him address it, and then I'll have something else for the board.
I just wanted to point out what driving this is part of our administrative order with the Department of Environmental Services on the effluent disposal project. They wanted us to upgrade the ordinance so it'd be consistent with DES regulations. We had a consultant help us with it, and it changed in format, which kind of got a little confusing. And then the word processor took over and made it more difficult for us then to get it back in format. And then we tried to get it into the format of the code with the right page number. So we had a heck of a time. I think Marie did a heck of a job. I think we got all the issues. There was one issue that I did want to point out in which the old regulations never had anything specific about payment on the connection fees. The RSAs do allow for payment plans for nonprofits and for other, in a 3-year plan for residentials. But talking to Brenda and Mr. Owen, we think that it's really a situation that creates problems for the town, that the payment plans don't work. We would advise most of the people that this is a cost of doing business. Like you have to pay for your well, you have to pay for the sewer system. It's a fee that's a part of the project, and we are recommending we took that out. So that was in there, and I just want to make sure everyone understood that that did come out so that the payments would be due upon connection. And I think that's something that we feel strongly about in supporting Brenda in the accounting. It's just it gets lost, and once they get it turned on, you can't turn them off, and it becomes a nightmare for us. So I just want to make sure I understood that.
I found that confusing, that section, you know.
Right, no, I'm glad you caught it, because I had overlooked it, and I apologize. That was if there's any other questions about it, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I have a question. I'm going to be going to the Chamber quarterly meeting, and I could find the sewer ordinance on our website, but we have this wonderful manual, and if there was a restaurant who wanted this manual, how would I tell them to get it? Are we going to put it online? Do they come into you?
Yes, both. We will have them both online, and we wanted to get the ordinance first. That is going to be a guideline that we would like to get out to the public, and maybe we'll kind of get the addresses of all the restaurants and tell them that, give it to them electronically. That way it'll keep the cost down. But if someone wants a hard copy, we'll have extra hard copies here at the office they can review. It is quite detailed, and again, one of the things to speak to that issue, we had the consultants had recommended making this, the fat and oil and grease program, mandatory, but it was going to cost so much to implement it, and the fees that we would have to charge to offset the cost to implement it, and it was like, whoa, we're creating another problem for business owners. What we'd like to do is reach out to the business owners and say, hey, the next time you're doing an upgrade at your restaurants, that would be the time to upgrade your system, to protect your own system, because being able to keep the grease out of your own lines. We've had a restaurant in town a few years ago, had a massive grease problem backed up. They were out of business for a while, and it's better to plan those things. So when you're doing an upgrade to your restaurants, that's the time we would want to plan, and we'd be there to assist them with that, but not make it mandatory at this point. We still have grease is a problem in our system, but we manage it by going out twice a year into those areas and cleaning the sewer system. So, and we do treat it and we manage it well. So I think as there's different ways of handling it, and we do want to encourage everyone to go that route, but we don't want to make it mandatory. We want to kind of make it more business friendly.
But as I was reading in some of it, and there was one flyer that I can't remember whether it went out, I'm not on the sewer system, that talked even to residential people on how to wipe out their pans and stuff. Are we going to follow up with that again? And because they can help us by just doing diligence without having due diligence, without having to spend a lot of money upgrading their...
Correct. We need to do the public outreach. We have not done that yet.
Okay.
We've been focused on getting this approved first, and then we'll have the guidelines there. So now in the fall, we'll do our public outreach.
Thank you.
I'll open the public hearing. Is there members of the public that have any questions or comments in regards to this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Anything else from the board? Mr. Rowan?
A couple of things, Mr. Chairman. First, you may have noticed in Town Council's review comments that he suggested that we have the town's health agent review these proposed regulations, and she has done that, and she has given her approval to them. Also, I had a few minutes before anybody came in this evening, and I was sitting here proofreading the revised ordinance when I realized we still have a problem here, still referencing RSA 252 that doesn't exist anymore. So I would ask that the board consider continuing this public hearing to your next meeting so we can take care of this little problem and bring it back in fully revised form.
Is there a way to, because again, we have a deadline, I was supposed to get this done, I guess we have one more meeting in September, so I got a deadline by the end of September to get this signed. Is it, again, is it a typo error? What paragraph is it in?
It's right on the front page. It's still referencing for purposes of RSA 252. And we had something from Town Council telling us that 252 no longer exist.
Well, can we approve it with that edit?
Well, could we approve it with Mr. Owen and your department going through and making sure that all the RSAs are correct? Because that's what's going to cause us the big problem here. If there's one here, I proofed the other stuff and I sent it out and saying I didn't have time to proof all the RSAs. But I wouldn't have problem doing it on the condition that Mr. Owen and you or Marie proof it to make sure that all the RSAs are correct.
Unfortunately, we have done that, and I can't believe we missed it, but we did have Mark Puffer look at it, so he gave us all the list. I thought we addressed all the lists. I don't know how
I
we
did
missed this
too,
one.
but there it is.
Yeah, that was one, so we can go through it again. I don't see it having any impact on it, except for it's an improper reference. So again, I would, you know, if you could approve it with that edit, and we could have that done, and then we could have a copy ready to be signed, because I've got to get to DES a signed copy, so in that, they've been after me on that to make sure we get that done, so not a big deal, but we can do it that way, or we can come back in 2 weeks.
I have no problem with it.
I'm good with that, too.
Good with that? Are you okay with that, Mr.
Surely.
Owen?
Sure. As long as you get it correct.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept Chapter 126 of the Wolfeboro Town Code by adopting the proposed ordinance governing the operation and maintenance of the municipal sewer system with the caveat that Dave Owen and Dave Ford will reproof the document and make sure all the RSAs are correct.
Second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, perfect. Next, we have the bulk vote, which includes weekly manifests, property tax credits, exemptions, intents to cut lumber, applications for current use, raffle permits. Entertain a motion to.
I would move to approve the items listed on the agenda in A through E above.
Second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to appointments. You have a member of the Board of the Library Trustees. Mr. Owen.
Yes, the library trustees have written you and have advised you that they have a vacancy and that they are requesting the board to appoint Thomas Madden, currently an alternate trustee, as a full member of the Board of Library Trustees until the next town election in March 2018.
Okay.
Would you like a motion? I move that we
Is he
appoint,
here?
Is he here?
oh, yes, I will hold up on that then.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Tom Madden. I live 10 Canapatchee Road. We've been here for about a year now. Prior to that, we lived in, well, East Kingston, New Hampshire, but I was the director at the Durham Public Library for 11 years. And since coming here, I'm the head librarian at Brewster Academy. And so I'm hoping to contribute because we did build a new library when I was in Durham.
Excellent. Any questions, sir?
Now, would you like that motion?
Love that motion.
I move to approve the appointment of Thomas Madden as a full member of the Board of the Library Trustees for a term through March 13th, 2018.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jane Newcomb. I have served on the Library Board of Trustees as a trustee, but I would like to serve 1 year as an alternate trustee for the Wolfeboro Public Library.
Entertain a motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Jane Newcomb as an alternate member to the Board of Library Trustees for a term through July 31st, 2018.
Second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board?
I'd just make a comment that Jane has been a part of the library foundation, the very essence of the library, and for many, many, many years has been one of the most important people in the library. Good person.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Move on to new business. We have the transfer of a cable license. We have both representatives from MetroCast and Atlantic Broadband here tonight to talk to us about that and hopefully tell us how our cable bills are going to go down, too. Gentlemen?
Great introduction.
Let's try. Yeah. Ain't gonna happen.
Good evening. My name's Ed Merrill. Excuse me. I'm the general manager with MetroCast Communications, and I'm responsible for the operations in New Hampshire and Maine. And I'm here tonight representing MetroCast Communications. I'm here with Fran Bradley, who is representing Atlantic Broadband. Fran?
Yes, thank you. We're here tonight asking for the consent of the Selectmen for the transfer of the cable franchise from MetroCast to Atlantic Broadband. Atlantic Broadband is purchasing all of MetroCast assets throughout their systems here in New Hampshire, Maine, Virginia, Maryland, and Virginia. And we're anticipating that the closing will take place at the first of the year. We are also anticipating that all of the local MetroCast employees will become Atlantic Broadband employees at that point. The meetings have already taken place with the employees to let them know what to expect. And I believe Ed would be able to attest to the fact that they seem to be very happy. As far as the systems are concerned, we have a pretty good idea of how to integrate the systems of MetroCast. We purchased the Connecticut systems from MetroCast about 2 years ago and have had great success with them. So we have a footprint on how to integrate them. A lot of the back office vendors that are used by MetroCast are the same that are used by Atlantic Broadband, and so we feel that it'll be a relatively smooth transition. I'll stop at that and see if you have any questions for me.
Yeah, one of the things you gave us when, in the material, there are some upgrades that you're going to make, and one of the things that I saw, double internet speed, and can you kind of explain their public hearing this at home, what they may gain by you taking over MetroCast?
Well, I think that one of the reasons that we found the MetroCast systems to be very attractive for us to purchase is we feel there's a lot of room for growth. And in that growth, not only in the cable side and through different marketing techniques, but also on the broadband side with increasing speeds, providing different alternative speeds. To give you an example, when we took over the systems in Connecticut, within the first year, we launched 1 gig service, which no other operator in Connecticut had done that at that point. So we definitely think that there's a lot of room for us to grow. We're also looking at developing a rather extensive business services group that will be able to work with small, medium, and large-sized businesses on not only cable service, but on broadband and enterprise services, and also hosted voice to give them an alternative.
Thank you.
Brad?
Yeah, just one quick question and a comment, probably. We've got a gentleman up there behind the cameras up there that runs, he's a director for our Wolfeboro Community TV. I'm sure he's going to want to, talk to you in the very near future here on plans with that, because the TV is funded by the franchise fees that we get through the contract here and stuff. So I just want to put that little plug out for Timothy up there to he'll probably be in contact with your organization and work towards working together on that.
Let me also say that, and I was remiss in not saying it at the beginning, that as of the closing, Atlantic Broadband will be bound by all the same terms and conditions of the franchise agreement that exists with MetroCast currently. So that will all just become part of our responsibility.
I just have one quick question. This kind of relates more to customer service. Back in the spring, We had a windstorm that came through Belknap and Carroll County, and it knocked out MetroCast service for a lot of customers. And for many days, the mechanism by which they used was Facebook to communicate where the problems were. First response was spotty at best in response to customers. The customer service number had been down for a while, understandable. Moving forward, the commitment to not only we obviously all know that storms happen, that weather happens, but communication with the public is key in any kind of crisis like that. I believe even the fire chief and our police couldn't even get answers, and the state couldn't get answers about when service would potentially be restored. And that's frustrating for anybody in government, because we have to deal with it too. And where we were without cable and internet and all that stuff, which by all means now is a utility, you know what I mean? It's something you need. So I'd like to know what Atlantic Broadband's commitment going forward is to being able to communicate with the general public when there is an outage.
Can I make a comment
Sure.
on that first? I was here and I was out in the field with that storm, and I could understand the frustration with our customers because we couldn't tell them exactly what the status was until we found out, exactly what was going on before we could fix it. But we were working around the clock. Once we were able to identify the situation and identify the problem, we were telling customers not only in neighborhoods, but on streets when they were coming up using Facebook. But until then, we couldn't let them know because we didn't know when they were going to get back up. We didn't know the extent of the damage. But once we were able to identify it and lock it down, we were able to start telling people when they were going to come back on. What we did identify at that point in time is we had just small sections, but there were key sections where we had actually redundant fiber that were running on the same paths. They weren't distinct paths. So we had, even though we had redundant cable, they were going down the same road. And in Belmont, we found out that's where we had our worst situation, where it just took out not just a tree, but just groups of trees when it went down there. So it took out our primary and it took out our redundant fiber. Since then, we have rerouted it. We have distinct redundant fiber routes through all of our system now, so we won't have that problem. But whatever we can do to, going forward, I'll let Fran speak to that. But we identified issues and we corrected those issues at that point in time.
I can tell you that as Atlantic Broadband, we have an extensive social media group because we recognize the fact that that is the way that people communicate now. And so that commitment will carry over into these systems also.
Okay. Anything else on the board? Mr. Owen?
I'd like to ask a question, if I may. The franchise agreement, I guess all the franchise agreements with MetroCast have density requirements relative to extending broadband service and cable service out to different parts of the community. And as a consequence, we still have some, rural subdivisions and parts of town that still don't have broadband service in this day and age. So it's sort of hard to believe. Is there any likelihood that Atlantic Broadband might look more favorably upon extending its infrastructure out into these unserved parts of our communities?
Well, I can tell you that first off, we would be bound by the same density requirement that's in the current agreement.
Okay.
What we have done.
But apparently there are communities on the other side of the lake that have some less rigorous density requirements than what we have. How about bringing us all into standard or something?
I'm not really sure if there is a standard. If you look across the cable industry, there really isn't a
Yeah.
standard. But what we have done in the past, and I don't think that it's so much of an issue of extending the service. I think it's the costs that are involved in it. And so what we've done in some cases where some communities have requested that broadband be extended into areas that don't make economic sense, but there's still a need, is that we have supplied that cost to the local municipality. And we've indicated that these particular areas, it would cost X number of dollars for each of those areas. And in some cases, the communities have funded that build so that the service would be able to be deployed into specific areas, but that the aid to construction contribution came from the actual local municipality. In some cases, they've used their franchise fees in order to supplement that where they wanted to have it extended where it wasn't economically feasible. And so we would certainly look at something like that if the town would want to consider that.
Fair enough.
Anything else from the board?
This whole resolution to be read out loud?
Mr. Owen?
Yes, they have provided a resolution that they're asking communities to adopt, approving the transfer of the cable television franchise. And I have provided you the verbiage of that resolution, so you want to adopt it by reference, you can do that, or
Sounds like a
however you want to
plan.
do it.
Unless somebody has a need to read it, I would like to do it
I
by
don't
reference.
need to.
I don't.
I've read it.
I'll start out.
Well, I could read it if that would
I could have, happy to help.
please the board. Shall I do that?
Make a motion.
It's a resolution approving the transfer of the cable television franchise granted by the town of Wolfeboro. Findings: the town of Wolfeboro, the franchising authority, has received a request from MetroCast Cablevision of New Hampshire to assign to Atlantic Broadband, a wholly owned indirect subsidiary of Cogeco, is that how you said it? Communications Incorporated, that is Atlantic Broadband, the cable television franchise held by MetroCast franchisee. The franchise requires that the MetroCast obtain the franchising authority's prior consent for the assignment of the franchise by MetroCast to Atlantic Broadband. MetroCast and Atlantic Broadband have properly requested the franchising authority's consent to the assignment and transfer of the franchise and related assets to Atlantic Broadband. Atlantic Broadband has the financial, technical, and legal ability to fulfill the obligations of the franchise, and the assignment of the franchise to Atlantic Broadband will serve the public interest. Resolution. Based on the above findings, the town of Wolfeboro resolves as follows. The franchising authority consents to the transfer to Atlantic Broadband of the franchise and all of MetroCast rights in and under the franchise. 2, upon the closing of the sale of MetroCast cable system to Atlantic Broadband shall become bound by the franchise and shall perform and discharge all obligations and duties under the franchise that arise on and after the closing. 3, upon closing, the franchising authority releases MetroCast from all obligations and liabilities under the franchise that relate to periods from and after the closing. 4, upon closing, my French is not good. Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec. How's that?
Refer to it as just CDPQ.
Okay. CDBQ. Thank you. We'll have an indirect equity interest in Atlantic Broadband. 5, Atlantic Broadband may assign or transfer its assets to an entity directly or indirectly controlled by, or under common control with Atlantic Broadband, restructure debt, or change the ownership interest among its existing equity holders and/or CDPQ, pledge or grant to any leader a security interest in Atlantic Broadband's assets to secure indebtedness, and sell equity interest in Atlantic Broadband or any of Atlantic Broadband's affiliates. 6, all franchising authority action necessary to approve this resolution and the franchise transfer have been duly and validly taken. 7, this resolution is effective upon adoption.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
You're welcome.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? None. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Can do.
Thank you.
Next, we have a request for a public hearing, building permit on a Class 6 road. Mr. Owen?
Yes, you have received a request here from the Simmons for in effect, a new public hearing on their Class 6 road building permit application. As you know, this matter was heard and voted by the board last year. And it's been in litigation for quite a period of time now. And I gather that the parties wish to try to resolve some of the issues relative to the procedure that was followed and such by requesting a new public hearing, a de novo public hearing, as it were, on the matter. So if the board were to approve setting such a public hearing, it's got to have at least 14 days' notice, so it couldn't be at your next meeting on the 20th because we wouldn't have 14 days. So I was going to suggest that you might want to consider a special meeting on the off Wednesday, maybe the 27th, to consider this matter. We could get it in a newspaper by that time, and it could take considerable time. I'm sure both parties are going to be represented by counsel, and we'll probably have town council here as well. So,
How does that work for everybody on that Wednesday?
Fine with me.
That's Wednesday, the 27th, you're saying, Mr. Owen?
Will that be at 7 p.m., a regular meeting time?
PM?
it can be 6:30 or 7, whatever time you
6:30,
want to
really?
set it.
6:30 sounds good to me.
Okay?
So, make the motion, I guess, to approve setting a public hearing on the application for a building permit in Stoneham Road, a Class 6 road, on September 27th, 2017, at 6:30 p.m.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay. There was another piece of this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
You may have
See
seen
that.
that the planning board has already reviewed this matter and made recommendations to the board. One of the recommendations they're making is that the board amend its Class 6 road policy to include review by the Conservation Commission in addition to the planning board. Now, I was talking to town council about this, and if you were to choose to do this right now, we couldn't, if you made this amendment right now, we couldn't have the public hearing on the 27th, because we'd have to send it to the Conservation Commission, and they would have to, you know, take time to review it and give you your recommendation. So I would suggest you might want to hold this recommendation in abeyance, or if you do vote it at this time, that you make it effective at some future date, so it doesn't become effective immediately.
Yeah, I would also, if we're going to look at changing the Class 6 road policy, I would like to also add that we will schedule a public hearing on each Class 6 road building permit. I think we see now that it's important that we do that. So I'd like to do the two changes together, if that's agreeable with the board.
Do that in the October, first October
We
meeting?
table this for now.
I'm fine tabling it until...
I'll make a motion, we table the second section in reference to Class 6 roads in the Conservation Commission.
Second it, I guess. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Being none, all is in favor of tabling this? Aye?
Aye. But we could still do the section about adding a public hearing to the Class 6 road permit, a building permit, because that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
So if
I make that motion then?
I would, that I move that the Board of Selectmen schedule a public hearing on each Class 6 road permit, building permit application, building permit.
Okay, I'll second that. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I'm not in favor of that.
All's in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
So can I just clarify, so the board just voted to amend the Class 6 road policy, is that correct, to include the public hearing requirement?
Public hearing, yep.
Okay, very good.
Moving on, we have the Center Street reconstruction project update. Mr. Ford is here.
Yeah, well, like I said, we are having some problems with the contractor and regulations. We've resolved those with DOT, and they are got the HAZWOPER training class has been scheduled. So as my letter, I kind of laid out a schedule. That is still the best case scenario in which we would begin test pitting and mobilization and setting up the storm groundwater treatment system the last week of September, with the intent of starting drainage construction by the low point of the project, which is between the drive-through at TD Bank and Louis Pizza. That is still the best case scenario. There is potential for it to get delayed due to weather or the training aspect, but we're hopeful that that's when we'll start. That's still, good a few weeks away. In the next couple of weeks, that schedule will be firmed up. I'll be back here in 2 weeks. At that time, hopefully, we'll have a more specific schedule. And then when we do know within 2 weeks, we're going to go back out to all the business owners and property owners to give them more specific information about how the construction is going to impact them, how we'll set up temporary detours. All businesses will remain open. All businesses will have pedestrian access to their facilities. There will be a construction zone, though, so and we will work very hard with them to make sure we can get deliveries in and out. We will set up communication between the businesses, the project engineer who will be on site, the project inspector, and the superintendent from GW Brooks. We've already had one meeting. There's been a lot of discussions with the engineer and the contractor, myself, to coordinate that work. And we didn't want to get it out too early because, again, we're still not 100% sure of that schedule. That's our optimistic, so it's not going to start any sooner than that. So we're still almost a month away, and then we're going to be working very quickly to hopefully get as much done as possible. Our goal is still to get all the drainage through the parking lot up to Center Street, and to continue on Center Street with drainage and sewer work, and go as long as possible until the DOT will shut us down when we can no longer get pavement to do adequate patching. There is hope, though, that we can get this maybe into Thanksgiving, and if Mother Nature doesn't come and bite us too much. Just to be everyone to be aware, there will be a big, what we call a frac tank, which is a big, looks like a 40 cubic yard container that will be set up by the sewage pump station, which is on Laner Street. And all the groundwater will be pumped into that to be treated before it's discharged into the sewer system. So that any of the water that's coming out of the ground has to now go through this treatment system, although all that ground now goes right into the lake. But these are the rules. Once you start digging, we're being held to standards that seem, I guess have been there, but it is now becoming much. This is why one of the projects is so expensive. Most of this work will be will be reimbursed from the state petroleum fund. But just so they're aware, and then we're also going to try to get some information out into the paper with regards to the schedule and impacts, and then we'll have updates on the town webpage, and again, businesses being affected, we'll try to get to them.
Are you going to have it on the home page, the schedule for the construction?
We'd like to set up a Center Street project construction, so when you hit it, you hit that tag, and it'll go right to that and give you the updates, which we'll try to update on a regular basis.
But that link will be on the main page you come into?
I believe that's what it's set up for.
Can we do it on there?
I'm sure we can arrange that.
Okay, yeah, I just want to be able to tell people where to go, okay.
Yep. Any questions on the Center Street project? And then, just so we're aware too, we've seen construction start today. We are working in the back. That's a separate project. We are putting in, we got the drainage in. We had a substandard drainage system by where the old force field building was. We are putting up the new pavilion. The drainage went in well, and then we are now preparing for the foundation, and that project will go up very quickly. Our hope is, again, if all our subcontractors don't back out, but everyone's so busy now, it gets me a little nervous, but we're looking good, and hopefully that project will move very quickly. So that is a separate project than this one. We want to get that out of the way before we start, again, digging on Center Street and the parking lots in the front. Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. We next have an update. Chief Pinio is here. Update on the status of decommissioning of the fire alarm system here in town. Chief?
Good evening. James Pinio, Fire Chief, Wolfeboro Fire Rescue. As some of you may be aware, there have been some of the street boxes on the poles that have been removed. In the November Select Board meeting, we made the decision to go ahead, request decommissioning the municipal fire alarm system, and with your support, we moved forward with that project. Early August, we sustained some damage to a circuit board on the receiving unit in the fire station. As a result of that, we really had one of two choices. We could either replace that circuit board, or we could take some of our longer runs offline and consolidate a circuit. So that's what we made the decision to do. That decision was based on a couple reasons. We decided that the circuit going down Center Street had to be removed anyways to complete the pole transfers. Deputy Chief Zotti had worked with all of the clients on that circuit and had gotten them transferred onto a private monitoring system. So we were in good shape there. The only thing that was on that line was street boxes. So we were able to disconnect that line. We did the same thing on Sewell Road. There was some pole transfers that Municipal Electric had to complete down through there, and our fire alarm cable was holding them up. So we disabled that on North Main Street, down through, and the boxes were removed there as well. We also, from the library on South Main Street down to Middleton Road, disabled that portion of the system and removed those boxes. That allowed us to consolidate the circuits on the smaller boards. That way, we're not spending the money for those boards. Going forward,
next year, we'll be coming to you with a capital outlay project to remove the remainder of the fire alarm system. That's going to involve removing all the cable off the poles. That's going to involve disposal of that cable. That's going to involve the removal of the equipment within the public safety building. In that November meeting last year, it was discussed, how are we going to dispose of this equipment? And I guess that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight, is to get some guidance from the Select Board as to how you would like us to proceed going forward to remove and disperse the remainder of the equipment. I have a preliminary inventory of the equipment we have. It's 45 street boxes, 2 master boxes, 1 municipal panel, 1 power supply, 1 punch tape, 1 take-up reel, an entrance cabinet, fuses, and some associated hardware. I have a breakdown based on our current maintenance company that comes in and services our system as to what that would look like as far as going forward if they were to buy this system from us. The other question that we are working on internally right now, we have some boxes which are on buildings, and those boxes, there's some confusion as to who really owns them, whether it's the premise who owns that box or if it's the town who owns those boxes. And we really don't have good documentation of who owns what. So I guess I would like to get some feedback from the Select Board at this point as to going forward in 2018 when we put together our RFP to dismantle this system. Are we going to be putting this out to bid? Are we going to be selling this as a lot? What would you like to do?
I'm Dave Bowers. I'm a principal or a founder of the Fire Museum that we have, part of the Historical Society. And I'd like to ask the Board of Selectmen to have the right, the company making the proposal is prepared to pay $75 each for the used fireboxes. If we have 45, I'd like to be able to buy at that cost 10 of them and give 1 to the Historical Society and 1 to the Fire Department if you will have it as a souvenir. And also in looking at the central alarm boxes, I would request that maybe a representative from the Historical Society, not by me, come and look at what you have, and I would make a donation to the town or to the Historical Society if they wanted to take any of the alarm boxes or central things and put them on the wall of the Fire Museum to do that, so it wouldn't cost the town. So I'd like any resolution that the board makes to dispose of this, which is fine, be subject to the acquisition of 10 fireboxes and whatever headquarters equipment might be of interest to the Wolfeboro Historical Society Fire Museum, because once it's gone, we can't have it back, and this has been in the town for over 100 years.
Yeah, my feeling on it is if it's in the range that our town policy says we need to go out to bid, we need to go out to bid. And that's, we don't have a figure here of what you're talking about. So, you know, if it falls within that category where we need an RFP, we need an RFP. If it doesn't go out on an RFP, isn't, Mr. Owen, we need 3 bids?
Yes, well, I don't think the question is whether we need to go out to bid, but there are some options here. The options are, do we want to take all these boxes and sell them off individually or in groups? Like Mr. Bowers wants to buy 10, and there may be other people that want to buy boxes. Or do we do a RFP or information for bidders, which allows a company to, I guess we have a vendor that would give us a credit of so much per box against their cost for decommissioning the system. So there's a couple different ways to go about this. It would be bid or, subject to proper procurement or disposition rules either way.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. The only thing we're looking for right now is a little bit of direction so that when we build the RFP, we know, is this going to be sold off as a lot within that process, or are we as a town going to sell it?
I have another idea, make it simple for you. I will buy all those boxes at the offered price of $75 each times 45 boxes, and then I'll make them available to anybody who wants them at that price, and that way it preserves them for the town. There are not that many of them, and they're very historical. If you look on eBay, which I did today, any number of these boxes are for sale, many dozens of them, typically from about $70 up to maybe $150 if they're repainted. So, but then you could just exclude the boxes from anything you do. Just say that the boxes are going to be retained by the town.
And we're willing to do whatever the board wants to do. We just need some direction so that we can begin working on the RFP process.
I want you to do whatever is going to get the town and the taxpayers the most amount of money. There you go. I don't know that if you put it, when you answered my questions, and I want to thank you for doing that, sending me that email, if we put the vendor buying the equipment they remove, I think that was one of the options. I don't know whether another company would give us more money for it. That's what I think we're playing, and I don't know how many companies are out there to do that. I don't have enough information.
Yeah, and there are certainly companies out there who will come in and take down the wire and the associated equipment. This particular company, they have their own machine shop where they remanufacture a lot of these parts and pieces for the San Franciscos, the San Diegos, the places out west that continue to utilize this system, and then they resell those products to those municipalities. So there are other companies that do the line work, but there probably aren't going to be too many companies on the East Coast that will actually buy this stuff back, because most communities that still have this have their own fire alarm division that take care of this within house.
Yeah, I can't imagine that there aren't enough firefighters, either retired or active in this general area, that wouldn't be buying this stuff up pretty quickly. Just my thought on it. I think David opened the door on that, and I would be very surprised if even some of your own firemen would love to have some of these things hanging in their man cave or wherever,
But we want to just be above the board and
Right.
say, this is the direction we're taking because of X, Y, Z.
Yep.
So
Well, I
that
think-
everybody knows ahead of time, this is the direction.
So it sounds like the preferred direction would be to offer them for sale at $75 a box. Is that correct?
Well, that's what this company is offering. I can't believe you couldn't get more for them around here, but that's just my idea.
I thought I heard Mr. Bauer say he'd been on the internet and saw, or
Well,
on...
these are unrestored. Well, the $75 is what this offer is, so I would match that and give the money to the town so that people in the town could have them. I'm not making any money on it myself. I'm just trying to preserve them for those who want them. I mean, you could make a case where the fire department just kept them and gave them away, but I think $75 is a fair amount of money based on what little bit of research I've done in the cash offer you have. So I would match the cash offer and let the town distribute them, or I'll help, or have the Historical Society distribute them. I think they're cute little things, and I think they would probably go quite quickly. And as I say, would make no profit on it or anything, just turn them over to people interested.
Now, are we just talking about the street boxes, or are we talking about everything else also?
Well,
I'm talking
correct.
to the board. I think you need to know what we're
Thank you,
talking
yes.
about, because I don't. So are we just talking about the street boxes? Or are we talking about all the equipment?
I'm not certain there would be buyers for all that other equipment.
I think if, with the information that I have tonight, if the board is satisfied with it, we can exclude the street boxes from the RFP, and then when we put the RFP together, all of that other associated equipment can be put in there as purchase toward credit, toward decommissioning the system.
Sounds good.
And then if you do the RFP, why don't you put in something that the RFP, the successful bidder can offer any of your station equipment to the Historical Society or something if they want it. Okay. I think that preserving the boxes is good, and I think that would be very pleasing to our citizens. That makes it easy.
All set?
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christine? Next we have Christine Collins, Parks and Rec, program rates for 2018.
Hi, Christine Collins, Parks and Rec Director. I am coming before you today. It was kind of a last-minute ad. I'm going to press with my brochure, so I wanted to make sure we had the most up-to-date information out to our patrons. Looking over our fees across New Hampshire, like local recreation departments, we seem to be pretty uniform with swim lessons and stuff like that. The only rates that I'm looking to increase this year would be day camp rates, the Abenaki rates, and just the Pop Whalen ice rates for the daily user. I'll start off with the day camp. Currently, we have a day camp program that runs Monday through Friday. It's the pavilion that we're setting up for the day camp program. Right now, we offer, it's $50 for residents, $80 for non-residents. It's a Monday through Friday program, 8:45 to 3:30, and once a week, the children go on a field trip. Because we're a summer resort, instead of we used to do a full 7-week program, you'd sign up for the whole summer. We kind of went to a week-by-week program just because we have some people who are traveling, so they don't want to commit to 7 weeks, and we didn't want to hold that spot if they weren't going to be there, so other kids couldn't participate. So this past summer, we had 568 children go through the program that were residents, and then we had 28 non-residents. Residents are Tuftonboro, Brookfield, and Wolfeboro. So the total revenue we brought in was $30,640. We're proposing this year with that $50 rate or the $80 rate, it's about $1.50 an hour that you're paying for your child to go to camp. So we're just proposing an increase of $75 a week for residents, $120 for non-residents, which would bring it up to about $222 an hour, including your trip still. And it will increase our revenue by $15,320. The next thing I want to look at is the Abenaki. The rates for Abenaki, we currently have season passes. Asking just to bring the season passes, we haven't raised those rates at all, and currently our Pop Whalen season passes for a resident is $50. We raised those last year. So we're just asking to have those rates brought up for the residents and the non-residents. The non-residents for Abenaki is a little bit more. So it would be youth season passes would go from $30 to $50. The non-resident would go from $102 to $125. Adult season pass would go from $45 to $70. Adult non-resident would go from $153 to $160. The senior season pass is the same as the youth season pass, so it would go from $30 to $50, and then the non-resident would be $102 to $125. And then we offer a family season pass, so it would go from $105 to $160, and then non-resident would be $357 to $370. So with those increases, it would bring an increased revenue of $10,466. Along with that, we're just implementing that we raise the daily rates as well. Currently, it's $5 for residents. We're asking that it goes to $8 for residents. And then non-residents are $17. We're asking it that goes to $20. And that would bring in another $4,998. And then my last one is Pop Whalen. Pop Whalen, I did local areas, ice arenas, Rochester, Ham, Dover, and Laconia, which is now Merrill Fay Arena, just to kind of get a gauge of where we're at. We're the only rink that offers season passes. We did try to offer punch passes last year. I think we sold 2. So the season pass is a better option for people. So we're just asking that we raise the daily rate of $5 to $6 for residents, and for non-residents from $6 to $7. That would bring $2,159 of revenue. And then we also offer skate rentals, which we were charging $3. We're asking to bring that up to $5, which would bring another $1,806. With that revenue, I actually have a plan for it. I kind of raised the prices just to be more uniform, but then as I was working on my budget, which was due, I realized I needed some money to kind of counteract what was going on. And so we currently have just a position that I want to make a full-time position, so that would help offset the cost of it.
Yeah, I did send out some questions, and I want to thank Christine for answering them for me. And I was kind of looking at it and thinking about what it does to those people who are on the low income. And when I thought about Abenaki ski, then a family who didn't have much could always do cross country. There was another outlet for that. I felt comfortable that the day camp, there is the Children's Center that has tuition assistance, so I felt comfortable about that. The only one I had a hard time with was Pop Whalen, because we did away with the free outside rink, and I'm fully aware of how difficult it is today to do an outside rink. Yeah. So Christine and I talked about, and I would like to see if we can look at coming up with some scholarship money, maybe through our welfare department or something, and then I'm okay with that. Because I think it's important that we have them so that people can afford it, and that in today's world with all the opiates and stuff, that we help kids find positive outdoor activities. So that's my 2 cents.
I did make a phone call this afternoon. Last year we had the Ryan Goggin fundraiser, and they raised a lot of money for it. I spoke to his mom, and she wants to help develop a scholarship. She was working with Back Bay because it was more a hockey base, but it was such a beautiful event, and so many people who were from Wolfeboro came back, and they just loved it. So we want to continue it this year, and I did reach out to Back Bay. We want to do a collaborative event, and I said, the proceeds could be, some go to their hockey scholarship, and then I would like to have some so we could have a scholarship for Pop Whalen. So I did think I satisfied that need as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else from the board?
Would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to approve the proposed increase to the Park and Recreation Department user fees for the day camp program, the Abenaki rates, the Pop Whalen daily user fees for 2018 as proposed.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Christine. Next, we have cemetery rules and regulations and fee schedule.
I'll introduce this. As you know, we're about ready to open a new cemetery on Middleton Road. I have some plans of the. I think I gave you a small version of this in here.
I think you did. Yes, you did, I think.
This is the full-size version here. If you look at it.
you hold it up for the TV?
All laid out. I think it results in an additional 500 and, I forget the number, 546, I think it is, additional burial plots in Wolfeboro that are becoming available. The work is on the new cemetery is nearly complete. There's a fence that's going to be installed along the front that will mirror the fence that's on the opposite side of the road at the old
Granite's there.
cemetery there. The granite post and chains that's ordered, and we're just waiting for it to be installed.
It actually has been dropped off, so it's on the property, and they're going to, weather pending, it's either tomorrow, Friday, or Monday, so it's just weather pending that they're going to put that in.
Okay,
And they actually mowed the area already the other day.
Okay, so it's, the fence is about ready to be installed. So I thought this would be a very opportune time to look at doing a few things. First, the town of Wolfeboro doesn't have any cemetery rules and regulations. I'm not quite certain how that happened, but all the towns around us have cemetery rules and regulations. And I thought the opening of the new cemetery would be a good opportunity to get some rules and regulations into effect. I provided you in your packet some copies of other communities' rules and regulations just so you could see what they have in place. I'm not trying to be as lengthy or detailed as some of the other communities, so we kept it pretty basic in the proposed rules and regulations for the Wolfeboro cemeteries. I did run these by the funeral home directors. First of all, there were several versions of this as it got developed. There were several iterations of it, and Ryan Lord in particular was very helpful with his comments and feedback, and so this has gone through their review, and I believe they're in accordance with the provisions here. So we would like to propose these new cemetery rules and regulations. And also I thought this would be a good opportunity to revise our cemetery fee schedule, which hasn't been updated in a while. I think it was 2009 was your last revision on the fee schedule. And keep in mind that we're going to be, we need to generate funds for the sale of graves account because we're going to be having a more active cemetery program. We're going to have a renovation, a cemetery's renovation program next year that Christine and her staff have developed, and we're going to need money to fund that effort. That money's all going to come out of the sale of graves account, so we need to generate some more funds.
Does that go into a special account, or does it go into the general fund?
That's held by the trustees of trust funds.
So we sell them, they get the money.
They get the money, and then we tell them what we need, what we're going to use it for, and they're usually pretty accommodating. Actually, they gave us $30,000 to fund the development of the Middleton Road Cemetery. One of the things I forgot to mention to you on this plan, in the middle here, this wide spot in the road, that's where a proposed columbarium would be located. Columbariums are becoming more customary features of cemeteries. If you drive by the Alton Cemetery just past the Rotary in Alton on 28, you'll see they just installed a new one. There you can see it from the highway. Of course, they have one at Lakeview, and it's becoming a more common feature as more people opt for cremation as opposed to burial. And so this is a structure in which the urns are placed, and we'll be seeking to fund that also from the sale of graves account. So that's why it's going to need to be replenished, and why we're looking to increase the sale of graves fees. So I would entertain any questions or comments that the board has.
Seems like it's getting more expensive to die.
Yeah.
Well,
In 2009, it was 150, then we did it to 500, and now we're looking at 800. Just seems
well,
like...
the cemeteries were an area of sort of benign neglect, I think, in town for a long time, and we're trying to take better care of them, and I think these fees are pretty much in line with the other communities. At Lakeview, the sale of the cemetery lot is at $950. Alton's at $800 now.
Mr. Owen, how many grave sites do we have on the Pine Hill Cemetery?
We have the potential for, a few dozen additional lots there.
Okay, and these prices will be all cemeteries?
All cemeteries.
And how many do we have on the other side of the road?
I think there's 11, is that right? We're getting down to the bottom of the barrel on the other side of the road.
I have plots there.
I know. Yeah, you're in the bottom of the barrel.
Entertain a motion or a more...
I'll move to approve the proposed cemetery rules and regulations, including the proposed new cemetery fee schedule.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Finally, under new business, we have the town manager search process.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to go forward on this one? I asked to have this put back on the agenda, realizing that we're going to have Mr. Owen retiring and then Peter Chamberlain retiring at the end of June. So I have given to you the ad that went in the paper, questions that we had developed, or the MRI had developed for the last one, ideal candidate's profile and challenge statement, and I wanted to see if the board was comfortable with those documents. We need to decide whether we're going to stay with MRI or go out to bid. At one point, I was thinking we should go out to bid, and then I look at what we have from MRI, and I guess my gut feeling is that we stay with what we had. I believe, Mr. Owen, we had put this out to bid and chose MRI, so I see us just continuing something that we've already done. If these documents are okay, my first thing we need to do is decide what money we should make sure is in the 2018 budget. And I roughly calculated the maximum accumulated leave time that we could owe Mr. Owen, which would be around $21,000. Then we are going to have to put money in for the search, and the search last time was $10,400 when you figure in the expenses, not just for MRI, but the ads. So I went and looked at our 2017 budget, and we have a fund called Miscellaneous Executive Operating Expenses, and to date, we've out of $4,000, we only had spent $120.70. So I was hoping that the board would agree to take $3,000 of that miscellaneous money and see if we can get the search documents and get MRI here and start moving ahead on that. And then we're going to also need to decide if we're going to have MRI do the finance director, which Mr. Owen at one point talked about putting the two together, but we'll need money in the budget for that search. You think that, do I have everything, Mr. Owen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just guess I want to know whether that's agreeable with the board that we put those funds in the 2018 operating budget. Anybody have any trouble?
Sounds reasonable. I agree.
Okay, so then I went from there, figuring I just got 3,000, and figured that if we could meet with MRI in October and start the process, and they could give us a contract, and I just ran a timeline. It doesn't mean it can't change. And then in November, we look at the final documents that we have here and make some changes if we want. Get the ad out in December, get the applicants maybe by the middle of January, then have a month in which they would have time to do the essays and start looking at interviewing the 1st of March to try to get a new town manager in by the 1st of April to have a few months with Peter Chamberlain before Peter Chamberlain leaves. So that was my goal on my setting the timeline. So I don't know how people feel or if that's the direction you want to go, but I think we need to start moving on it.
I agree with that.
Well, I think we should start as early as practical, maybe with David Owen's advice and consent. You know, I don't know whether it's practical to hire somebody several months in advance and have them work with David or what. So I would probably defer to David and the rest of the board on that. But finding a town manager is going to be absolutely crucial, and I don't expect to find equal to the one we have, but we'll give it a good try.
We can put more money in next year's budget, too.
Yeah, and we probably should put more money in the salary range, too.
Exactly.
That we should take a look at that. This one had between 90 and 100. Mr. Owen is at almost 106,000, and, you know, we look like we gave about a $10,000 range in there, so we should, when we get our budget books, we should probably take a look and do some thinking about that. The only other thing that I was wondering whether the board wanted who MRI should contact. Last time MRI contacted the board, the time we did the hunt for Mr. Owen, we can have him contact the whole board, we can have it contact one person, or we can have him contact Mr. Owen, the three. My preference is that this is something that's the Board of Selectmen's responsibility, and we should be the ones managing it, and if the whole board didn't want to do it, I would be more than willing to be that contact. I went through it when we hired Mr. Owen, and I think it all worked out very well, and so.
It's just, if I may, Mr. Chair, just to be forthright here, I did have a conversation with MRI last week, just to the effect that this was coming up and was going to be discussed on the agenda, and I wasn't certain if the board was going to be going out to proposal or not, but you know, they're certainly interested in the job and doing the work for us, and there would be some economy in that they've already done a fair amount of the work, the challenge statement and the ad and all that kind of thing. So if the board wishes, I can, you know, contact them and let them know that board wishes to utilize their services again.
I think also
And,
because they're regional, they're living there in Meredith, they know what Wolfeboro is, and I think if you put somebody in Acton, Massachusetts or something, they would not have the understanding, and I would be in favor of going with MRI.
I'm comfortable. I think they, I think it will save us money, and we went out to bid last time when I thought about it, so I'm comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that we should all be contacted on that, either through one person, and then, the information given out to us, but we all should be kept
I agree.
abreast week by week or whatever it takes to,
I agree.
'cause otherwise, we're gonna get in here and not be able to discuss it
I
correctly.
agree.
But-
I agree.
And I don't care if it goes through the chair or the vice chair or whatever, but
I think Linda would be,
Linda volunteered, that's fine.
Okay.
She can do it.
I'll make sure I give you all the information. All of you.
Well, I think that's the important thing.
I
that we
do
get out,
too.
But I think one contact person is good.
Yeah, I think that, I agree. And the other thing I had on a roll here, I have sent you out Dave Owen's evaluation form, and we need to set a date when we all need to get it completed, and then we need to set a date when we're going to meet as a group to review it, and then set a date to meet with Mr. Owen. So, do we want to try to we're supposed to have it done by the 30th September. We never do it.
Yeah.
We never make that date.
We have a special meeting on the 27th for just that one hearing. Would that be reasonable to stay afterwards and go over it
Okay.
afterwards?
Why don't we try to do that? So we'll do it September 27th after
After the public hearing.
public hearing. So that means all of us has to have it done by the 27th. And then, do we want to, if we get it all, then you have to get it to me collated, or do you want to get it to me and have me put it all together before we meet, or do you want to give it to me on the 27th and I put it together and that we meet with Mr. Owen on the 18th of October? If you guys can all send it to me electronically, it's no problem at all. It's when I get some of it electronically and some of it handwritten that it takes me a little longer. So does that work for everybody? So we'll have it ready on the 27th. We'll sit and meet, and then on that 27th, then I will have until the 18th to have it all together and get it out to Dave Owen, and then we'll meet with him that night. Okay? All right.
okay. Next, we have old business. How about any other business? Wow, town manager's report, Mr. Owen.
Sure, I've got several things to report out. One, I received a notice today that the Cotton Valley Rail Trail will be holding an event on September 30th at 10:30 a.m. It's the ribbon cutting for the completion of the 12-mile Cotton Valley Rail Trail. So that's the completion of the last segment of the rail trail, September 30th. So I was well, to follow up on one of your previous actions where you accepted the check from the Friends of Town Hall for the repair of the clocks on the clock tower. We've arranged for that work to take place, and it will begin on September 19th, just so that you're aware. We received word last week that the appeal in the Hope House Families in Transition project has been withdrawn, so that project can move forward, and I believe they're hoping to start construction before the end of the fall. I think I included in your packets a copy of a check that we received as a payment for a welfare lien. It was nearly $4,000, $3,952, and I just wanted to make the board aware that we do collect on welfare liens when we have an opportunity to do so. And that's an example of one that your welfare director managed to reel in. You have in your packets a copy of the Department of Environmental Services Water Systems Survey. And the town's water system passed with, I would say, sort of flying colors. Again, no black marks or check marks against the system. It got a very good review by the state DES. As Dave Ford reported to you, work on the Fossfield Pavilion started yesterday. So that project is in motion. Oh, I was asked by the Household Hazardous Waste Coordinator to hand out the new brochures to the board. So these are the new brochures of the Lakes Region Household Hazardous Product Facility, Household Hazardous Waste and Medicine Collection Program. As a follow-up to one of your other previous actions, the voted to request a reduction in the speed limit in the vicinity of the golf club. That letter was sent to the New Hampshire DOT on August 21st by Dave Ford, so that's in the works. And finally, just to remind the board that there will be a meeting of the Budget Committee next Wednesday, September 13th, at which I anticipate that we'll discuss the so-called hydrant fees and how that's going to be dealt with going forward. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Committee reports, start to number Brad.
Let's see, last month we had a community TV meeting, basic discussion centered around fundraising and things like that there. And last night we had a planning board meeting. It was a very busy night. We had a site review, 4 boundary line adjustments, and some other discussions on other items moving forward and stuff, so that was it for me.
I had a zoning board meeting. What was that?
Linda?
Yes, first of all, I went to the Milfoil Joint Board Committee, and the dash unit repairs have been made, and the dash unit is out in Back Bay. We had a significant large growth from the time they were here in June. We started out on Thursday to do the railroad station docks, to focus on that area, to try to get as much of the milfoil out as we could. They are going to be here until the end of this week. They were not able to get in the water today. They're working on the far side, across from the railroad station, heading down towards the Smith, down towards the dam. So you'll see them out there working. We're hoping to see if we can get that under control again. The CIP committee, I've gone to 2 meetings. At the August 25th meeting, the CIP had a presentation from the library director on the expansion and the upgrade to that facility. On September 1, we had a report from Dave Ford about some emergency repairs to the town dock, and that should be at some point going over to the dock committee and a presentation to us here at the board. There was also a presentation on the public safety building. Most of the discussion was to talk about a feasibility study, and that's another study that'll come to us because we're hoping to use capital reserve funds for that, so probably have some more information on both of those in the future, and that's all I have.
I didn't have any, but I have a budget starting next week. Dave?
Nothing from me.
Okay, we have questions from the press. No questions from the press, okay. Public input, limited to 3 minutes per resident, not to exceed 15 minutes in total. Anyone here tonight for public input?
Extremely disappointed with the progress of a project that was approved in 2013, a minor project, the cemetery. I looked at the cemeteries that the town has, the two that are active, and they're pretty abysmal. Their headstones are kittywampus. They don't look like they're being taken care of very well. So that's why I decided I want to get grave plots in the new cemetery. Now, last September, I believe it was, at the Budget Committee meeting, I brought up this question of what's the progress of the new cemetery. I said that my observation that there was active reluctance to do anything. And David said, no, that's not true. Well, I figured I had 2 or 3 years before I would need a plot. Early November, I lost my best friend of 57 years, the finest person I have ever known. So it became more personal. So I again asked the question, what's the progress on the cemetery? I said, it looks like it's active reluctance to do it. Oh no. The representative of the Selectmen at those meetings, didn't seem to be interested in this subject at all. In May, I went and took a look at this new cemetery. Didn't see any activity, no progress. Would have been great if they seeded it last fall, but I don't think they did. So I went to Pete Chamberlain and said, I would like to be able to buy a plot by the 31st of August. And I had some conditions if it wasn't met. Well, I suddenly found some activity going on. There was, I think in June, 4 stakes were put up at the far corners. That's about all. I guess there was some surveying being done and stuff like that, but not much. Then July or sometime like that, David Ford got involved and got the paths laid out and all of that. Then I found out that, we're going to have water. A little bit later, I found out, we're going to have a fence. Oops, we're going to have a SOP, or rules and regulations. Oops, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to charge. This kept happening June, July, and August. Here it is, 4.5 years later, a minor project, and it's not completed. Now, the reason that I wanted to use the new cemetery, because I looked at the old cemeteries were not very appealing at all. I happened by chance in August be out in Wisconsin, where my family came up, and I went to the cemetery. It was gorgeous. This town, when I first knew it, it was 5 miles from where I lived, was 700 people. Now it's 1,500 people. But it's well maintained. It's pleasant, well groomed. And I saw people out there, families out there, tending the graves. There was a great deal of serenity there. I certainly don't see it in the 2 existing cemeteries. So the thing that I'm concerned about, why is it taking so long? Can I get a date when I can purchase a plot? Has that been established?
You can purchase a plot tomorrow, John.
Beg your pardon?
You can purchase a plot tomorrow if you wish. The cemetery rules and regulations and the fee schedule were adopted tonight. As far as I'm concerned, we're in business.
Okay, then I will be there. Thank you. Because my alternative was to say, fine, I'm putting 40 hours or more a month into the treasurer's job. God forbid that Pete would have to take over. Thank you. I will be down there to get that plot.
Very good.
What's the cost of them?
800.
Is that 800?
Correct.
Thank you, I can do it.
Good.
Anyone else? Other members of the public?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.